Hello, my friends. Welcome back to another and very special episode on a mother's journey to holistic health and healing. This is episode 55, and it wasn't quite a planned episode. It was something that kind of just came to me last minute earlier this week or this past weekend as I was doing some reflections out on a hike with the family and was just kind of really thinking and reflecting back on how, oh my gosh, it's going to be March 19th, which is our 2-year anniversary of the podcast. And so we're going to be getting into like the celebrations, the wins, the lessons learned, self-reflecting for both you and I, and the gratitude I'm going to be expressing, of course. But before we get into that, just a quick check-in. How are you doing? How have you been feeling? Now that we are shifting, depending on where you're at, right, in the world, we're preparing, some of us are already in basically spring, warmer weather right now, right? So kind of just giving yourself a pause, give yourself permission to pause and just reflect and think about how you've been feeling, whether it's energetically, mentally, emotionally, even physically, as we are transitioning into the spring equinox is what I think tomorrow or one of these days coming this week. And so I don't know about you, but where I'm at, the mornings are still crisp and cool, where we need a jacket and some warm clothing. But the mid morning and afternoons and late afternoons are pretty warm. They're warming up into the 80s and even the 90s today. And the evenings are still kind of cool. So I'm tuning in to what the weather's like with nature. I'm trying to tune in a little bit more to my body, into how I've been feeling, energetically, my mood. Um, some days I'm feeling a bit tired and like I'm not ready for this time change. And other days it's like I am, right? So I think that's where like our bodies are trying to find that rhythm again as we're slowly, gradually coming out of like our hibernation or the cold weather. And as we start getting more exposure to the sun, the warmer sun that, heals us, gives us this warmth, this light, this energy, but also can be very hot and exhausting if we're out there for too long. So anyway, I just wanted to give a quick check-in, ask you how you're doing, how you're feeling, and what are you noticing in your environment right now as the season is starting to shift. So so let's get right into it. I really want to be touching on some points that to celebrate not just the podcast of having, the podcast of 2 years and showing up, of course, but it's really also a celebration of how far we've come. Okay. And if you've been with me since the beginning of the podcast, thank you so much for being here and, being a part of the journey, and you're on your own journey as well. And, really just taking this moment to pause and reflect back at how much we've grown, how much we've changed, the ups and downs, the shedding, the renewing, right? We just closed the moving out of the snake, and now we're moving into the year of the horse in the Chinese New Year zodiac, right? And so there's been a lot of growth. There's been a lot of growth and a lot of changes. And as I was getting out some questions for myself for the podcast today, it helped me to have a lot of self-reflection, to self-reflect on, it's not just a 2-year anniversary of the podcast of showing up and, coming on and doing X amount of number of episodes. It's not that at all. It's really coming back to how much we've healed, how much we've grown, and how much we've connected with other women here on the podcast as well. And so that has been, really beautiful, really powerful to just reflect on, and just seeing how far I've come, and and for you, how far have you come, right? So as I'm going to be kind of like throwing out some questions, some self-reflective questions for you and for myself, so we can really take this episode, this time, as like, think of it as like you have your journal and you're writing in your journal, right? But instead, maybe you're just here with me. We are reflecting together. And which kind of like is a nice little introduction or like segment into sharing how this space and what it's been cultivated into being is like a sacred space, almost like a circle. Even though it's just me by myself sometimes recording, or I have a guest on, that is our circle right there. That is our sacred space. And what's been revealed to me just recently is that that's what all this has led me to until now, is creating sacred space for women, for mothers, to share their story, to grieve, to cry, to express their angers or frustrations, what they went through, how they overcame it with their courage, with support. And some didn't have support, so I've realized that it's been about creating space. And I've not really thought of that. Like, even in my work, I've held space for patients, for clients since I started as a registered dietitian. Was that 14 years ago, 15 years ago or so? But never really reflected on what that means. It's not just a one-to-one, conversation and education and coaching. It's more than that. It's actually creating a sacred space, a safe space for the other individual to feel heard, feel seen, listen to heart without any judgment, and me creating that safe space to provide that active listening, to listen, with your curiosity and non-judgment and compassion, and really helping me to also learn how to become, a more, how could I say, supportive coach, person, just here on the other side, human being listening to another soul and their story and what they are wanting help with and guidance with. So the more that I have these episodes and the more I reflect, the more I see the bigger picture in it all. It's not just, like I said, celebrating, starting the mic, coming on and not missing an episode and, showing up and still being consistent. It's creating a sacred space for not just myself, but for other women to share their stories, their healing, their growth, and how we've evolved, and sharing these learning lessons along the way. So that's how I'm going to be treating this podcast. Really is like a sacred circle, especially when I'm with interviewing someone. And so typically when I'm interviewing somebody, I always open up with a prayer. If the other person feels okay with that, I always ask for permission and get their consent. I open up with a prayer, and it's just for our highest and greatest good, and really creating this safe space, right? And so that's how I am going to be treating this podcast episode from here on out. So very sacred. Not that it wasn't before, but now it's clearer to me, because I feel this is also preparing me for whatever's to come in the future of sacred circles and leading circles. And not too long ago, I held my first online women's circle for the winter solstice. And so I feel like this has just been a really beautiful way to help me prepare for that and tune into that. And even though I've been doing it for so long, it's just like leading me there basically, and guiding me there to that path. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So I'm super excited. Let me just touch base on how I'm feeling. So, right as I was getting on to record and come on, I'm trying to do it on camera. I have, nervousness. I have the jitters. I'm anxious. I'm excited, but I'm nervous. Also, at the same time, it's like doing it for the first time. So, just for you all out there, it's like, if you're thinking about, starting a podcast or doing something new, right? I'm encouraging you to do it. You may always feel like that nervousness, and that's okay. It's okay. We acknowledge it. We meet it with where it's at. We take deep breaths. We, just tell ourselves everything's okay, right? It's just, there's always those pre-stage, quote unquote, stage jitters, right? Just like if someone was performing. So That's how I was feeling today. I'm also feeling very proud. I'm feeling proud of not just myself, but I'm feeling proud of all the other women who have come on the show to trust me with their stories, to trust me with holding space for them and putting their story out into the world. So that is one thing I am very proud and grateful for, is not just myself and showing up and all the hard work I've put into this podcast and sharing my stories and sharing what's helping me help, that in hopes that it will help you in some kind of way. But also the women, the courageous women that have come on to share their battles and their victories. And so, just so proud of all of us. And for all of you who are listening, who, whether you've just joined in and you've only been listening for some time, or you've been with me since the beginning, or however, it doesn't matter. You found this podcast for a reason. And I'm proud of you. And I hope that you are too, even if you feel like you haven't, quote unquote, done much or done enough or anything like that, right? Because our brain can always throw something in there for us to make us feel bad about ourselves. I am proud of you, because just by you being here tells me a lot about you. It tells me that you are strong, you are determined, you want to do things differently. You're like one of the first ones in your family to want to do things differently. You want to do better for yourself and for your family. You want to break the generational cycles. You know that there's more to life than just what you see. You know that there's, just so many questions out there that there's no answers to, but we are just intrigued by and curious by. And there's got to be more than this kind of a thing, right? Like really doing some of that also, not just like the emotional work, the healing work mentally or even physically, but also the soul work and diving deeper into that too. So that doesn't, it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. And so I really commend you. I really thank you for being here. And it's not easy work. And sometimes we want to just stop it all, but that's not in our personality. That's not in our trait. And that's not who we are. And also one of the reasons why we are here on this earth. And so you are here on this earth also to remind you of your wholeness, of your purpose here on this earth, and what you're meant to create and what you're meant to share and build in your world, in your environment, and those around you. And I really want to share that, because that is coming to me stronger. Little by little, it's coming to me a little bit more stronger and stronger. The more that I do the work that I'm doing, it is revealing to me how important it is for us to do this work and share our medicine, share what we've learned, share what we've healed with those around us, because we really need it in these times of crisis, of genocide, of environmental destruction, human destruction, community destruction. There's a lot of destruction right now. And how do we battle that? We battle that by our values, our integrity, our celebrating our culture in our own family lives, what we're doing differently, breaking those cycles. So yeah, I just want to share that and acknowledge that I'm proud of you for being here. And it's not by accident that you are here and that you found this podcast. And so that is also exciting, because it doesn't happen by accident. You were meant to be here. You are meant to be hearing these episodes. It's for your own soul growth and for your own soul remembrance. And that is also another thing that's going to be different here in the podcast, is we're going to be talking a little bit more also on soul growth, soul development, remembering who we were before all the lies, before we were taught all these limiting beliefs, remembering our wholeness, returning to our wholeness, and what that looks like for you, that path to self-discovery, soul discovery, what your purpose is here on this earth. It's a beautiful path. It's a beautiful and enlightening path when we become a little bit more conscious, a little more and more and more. It can be lonely at times, but we have community and we have each other. And you can also find community where you live in your city, or if you're in a small town, right? Or online. And that's how I've been able to create community that really resonates and connects with me on a deeper level. and through online community. And then now starting to gradually create my own that feels aligned and that feels authentic to me. And so, yeah, I just want to share that so that way you have a heads up. If you feel like that's not for you and you're kind of like, this is not really the shift or the direction that I'm on right now, I totally respect that. And I wish you all the best if you feel like, the podcast is not for you or you're just going to jump in every now and then. I totally respect that. And we're all on our own paths and our own journeys at this certain time, again, for a reason. So I just want to disclose that. I just want to disclose that a little bit. And it just feels good to be a bit more open and honest with you. And as I've received these reflections and, as they've been coming in little by little. So I just want you to know that because you're important to me. This podcast is important to me. And it's important to me that I speak with, honesty and truth. And yeah, so I just want you to know that. And thank you for being here. So let's go back to why I started this podcast in the beginning. And I shared a little bit about it last year for the first year anniversary. I started the podcast because I was doing coaching with another coach. And in the program, we were encouraged to start some way to connect with our audience or with our people that we're wanting to connect with to get clients from. And so it was either through newsletter or, creating your own email list or doing your podcast or, different ways. And so I chose the podcast without even thinking about it really. I set up everything I needed to set up, and I didn't start recording though, because then after that I had my girls and I had the title, but it just didn't align, right? It was going to be Motherhood Undieted. And it just didn't feel aligned at the time. I didn't feel as excited or inspired by it. So I was just kind of like, I kind of pushed it off to the side. And then I got pregnant. And then fast forward a year after postpartum, after having my girls, and I started doing nutrition counseling with the company that I'm working at right now on the side, holistic health coaching. And just, having new clients again for longer periods of time and building that connection, building that rapport, building that relationship. I just started to see and realize like, oh my gosh, we are each going through something challenging, right? And in motherhood, postpartum, anxiety, depression, trauma, domestic violence, like there's just so many things out there that each and every one of us could be experiencing and going through. And so, it just kept being revealed to me. I'm not just here to talk to them about nutrition. Like we take a holistic approach to health here, right? And so that's where it was born and created. You have a binge eating disorder. Well, let's talk about the roots. How are we going to cope with stress? How are we going to cope with this, this response to the trauma that you experienced? And how are we going to work through that, right? What kind of practices? So really taking a holistic approach to our health and well-being to help heal, right? To help heal. And so that's what pretty much, gave me that idea is like, oh, everybody's on their own journey. We're on our own journey and we're healing. And so that's where it came from. And so from that moment on, that first whole year was really me sharing what practices and modalities are helping me heal through my experiences, challenges, hard times, and how I'm overcoming them. That was the first year of the podcast. And then this past second year was all about bringing in mothers to come and share their own stories, what they've overcome and how they've done it, to help also share their own wisdom and share their own insights and how they did it as well, because we are all different. And what works for somebody might not work for somebody else, but it might also work for you, right? So it's just a matter of being open-minded and trying different things. And so it's just much more powerful also for the other person to come on and speak what they've been through. It's also healing, right? What they've been through, how they overcame it, where they're at now, and seeing that story, the before, the middle, and the after. There's a lot of power in storytelling. And so that's, when I started, I think that's also something that I didn't think I really was craving or needing at the time, but it was connection with another soul, another human being, another, mother to mother, woman to woman, conversation, heart to heart talk. And I think that's another thing that my younger parts of myself have been craving and wanting me to heal is through connection in this way. And so, again, through these reflections, I've been able to kind of realize that that's, what's helped me heal that wound, right? And at the time, I was kind of just like, okay, thinking like, if we bring in moms to tell their story, that's going to be really empowering for them as well and other moms listening. But what I didn't also realize or expect is how healing that was going to be for me. Right. And also, again, every conversation that we've had, all the insights, um, really, aha moments have taken place through these podcast episodes. Let's take a pause to think about how have you grown within the past 2 years, right? The past 2 years, what's changed within you, right? For me, my question is, how has this podcast changed me? And, I think growth can either be fast and quick, or it could be subtle and gradual, or it can be maybe somewhere in between, right? There's no right way or wrong way for growth. And I do know that I have grown in terms of my confidence and my belief in myself. I do know that I have grown in confidence in what I'm capable of. And it's also given me a little bit more like I've regained trust in myself and continuing to try to trust in the universe or God's plan for me. I've changed in ways where through the work that I've done has helped me show up as, how could I say, more calm, right? A little bit more clarity through the practices and modalities, like continuing with my meditation practice, um, my movement practices, connecting with the plants and creating plant medicines. It's really helped me to expand my energy and tuning into whatever my soul's calling me for to do next. Or if something kind of comes up and I'm like, oh, I noticed something that maybe excites me or I'm interested in, I know I'm being called to that for some reason. And so I know what I'm noticing is that I'm slowly, more and more strengthening that connection with my intuition as well. And I'm not as afraid or nervous or scared to reach out to other moms, other women to come onto the podcast, right? Instead of being fearful of like rejection or just embarrassment or I don't know, whatever thoughts that could come up. None of those thoughts come up. I don't entertain them. They don't show up. It's just like, all right, who are we going to have on today? Who's going to come and inspire, our listeners, the community, our sisters and mothers here? That is really humbling to me at the same time, too. When I connect with someone and we're having like a pre-podcast call and they're telling me a bit about themselves and their story, it's a way for really heart-to-heart connection. And so I've learned that that's something I've been craving, is a heart-to-heart connection as well. Some of the things that I feel like I'm proud of that no one sees, right, is like, because, we're so programmed and conditioned to seek that external validation, like waiting for that other person's comment, waiting for them to say something, waiting for that like, waiting for that share, waiting for that review, whatever. We're so conditioned to get that external validation, maybe because of how we were raised. I shared a little bit about this on episode on the first year of our anniversary, how I'm working through that. But that's something that I would say that I'm proud of is working on that. It's slow progress, but it's progress, when I'm not having to be constantly looking, all right, who watched the show or who is anybody left any comments or, it's just coming back to that trust and whoever is meant to hear it is hearing it and they're taking away something from it. And so just trusting that is something that I've strengthened and that I am continuing to strengthen. Okay, it's not perfect. And that's definitely something that, no one else sees or notices. And that's something that I have to notice and that I have to keep working on within myself is letting go of that external validation. Is that we got to bring it back to ourselves. We got to validate ourselves, that we are appreciative of ourselves, that we love ourselves, that we are doing great just as we are, right? Appreciative of yourself. So validating and accepting yourself as you are instead of having others do that for you, right? Slowly, it's a process. So that's something I'm continuing to work on. Okay. So I'm going to leave you with a few reflection questions to reflect on and think about this rest of the year. Right now is a beautiful time, spring, as you start to get a little bit more energy and ideas and clarity. So, what is something you feel called to start, but you haven't yet? Maybe you keep having thoughts of like, oh, this isn't a good time, or I'm not ready, or I don't have enough experience, or like whatever the thoughts, right? What is something you feel called to start? I have quite a few of things that I want to start, but I don't have that much capacity right now. And so I'm trying to do what I can and tune into what, lights me up. And that's another thing that I would share is like when you are thinking about what you feel called to start, where is it coming from? Is it coming from, yes, an authentic, like deep part of you that is, yes, like you feel excited, it lights you up? Or is it kind of like a pressure? Does it feel like heavy or kind of like rigid or anything like that? So kind of just notice how you feel. Where are you waiting to feel quote unquote ready? Because we're not always going to be prepared or 100% ready. We are learning along the way. And that's what I'm continuing to learn. It's that we learn through the process, right? By getting started. And what version of you are you celebrating today? I want to ask you that. What version of yourself are you celebrating today? For me, I'm definitely celebrating a mom who has done lots of work. I've done nervous system regulation work, the emotional regulation work, the mindset work, the spirituality work, the talk therapy, the coaching, slowing down to connect with the elements more, to connect with spirit, to connect with the plants. I'm a aspiring herbalist and still a student. I will always be a student of yoga and qigong, I think, and also curanderismo, because that's also a lifelong study, just like herbalism. What version of you are you celebrating lately or today, each and every day? Maybe you're more patient. Maybe you notice you have a little bit more motivation or kind of like this urge to take care of yourself in certain ways. Like maybe for you, it's just going to bed earlier. Maybe it's taking time to journal. Maybe it's, making different decisions when it comes to your eating, right? What version of you are you celebrating today? Okay. So I just want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for being here, for showing up and listening with an open heart and an open mind as I share my experiences, what's helped me, take what resonates as always, leave what doesn't, listening to our guests and their amazing and empowering stories. And we are always growing, we are always evolving. And there's no perfect way, there's no right or wrong. And to trust in the process. And to wrap up our episode, I'm going to leave you with this. I am going to pull a card from my Herbal Astrology Oracle deck. I love this Oracle deck because it has, the artwork is just so beautiful. So I'm going to go ahead and just close my eyes and take a deep breath. And I'm going to ask, what message would you like us to know right now? What message would you like us to know right now? And we have Amanita. I don't know if you can see it because of the glare. And so amanita is a kind of mushroom medicine. Okay. I'm going to grab my little booklet. Okay. So amanita is like a bridge of realities, a connection to the higher power, celebration and coming home, family and awakening. Oh, I love this. We're celebrating the 2-year anniversary. We continue to have this awakening, and this is like our family, our community here, and coming home to ourselves. Oh, I like that. It just talks a little bit about the history of the plant. It used to be, it was a sacred plant. It was a hallucinogenic plant used for religious and shamanic practices in Central European folk traditions. And they also used it to connect to the afterworld and a deepening of sexuality. Although it's considered deadly poison, the tradition of consuming this mushroom for enjoyment as an aphrodisiac or for medicinal properties is still common. Amanita was used medicinally to treat bites of venomous snakes, joint ailments, mental imbalances, and psychological fatigue. Since amanita has been a medicine used ritualistically for divination, extrasensory perception, channeling, and deep-rooted healing, so the guidance says, your channel is open. Earth spirits celebrate you as you come back home. You feel one with nature and all her offspring, your extended family. You can clearly see through the veil, and your gift of profound insight is now at hand. You are here to be a bridge for the children of the earth, a conduit of safety and healing energy for the newer generations. Embody the medicine of children, laugh, sing, and play, spreading joy in the world, regardless of your age. If you feel disconnected, breathe. Focus on releasing old breath by emptying your lungs with long exhales. Feel free to do that now if you like. Explore by connecting to nature's cycles and co-create with your chosen family to regain a sense of belonging. Oh, what a beautiful card. Talking about, that's why we're here. That's what this podcast is all about, right? Healing for the generations before us and afterwards, creating this new earth for our children, and reminding ourselves the medicine of the children, the laughter, the playfulness, letting go of some of that seriousness in life. So just wanted to end on that note. And I hope you found it helpful to self-reflect and think about how far you've come. If you don't get a chance to right now, maybe you can take some time before you go to bed, or maybe tomorrow morning when you wake up, or whenever you have a break. Take some time to reflect on how far you've come. Celebrate yourself in whatever way that feels good to you. And let's continue to show up for ourselves, for each other, imperfectly. Thank you for being a part of our journey together, and I'm so grateful for you and for this podcast, and I can't wait to continue to keep moving on our paths together. Thank you so much for joining in, friends. Take care, and we'll catch you on the next one.